guys. How you doing? All right?
Sound, mate. Yeah,
Excellent, excellent. Have you been to Morris Lubricants in Shrewsbury?
Once or twice, mate.
See how we make the oil there, okay? So now we're looking at how we use the oil. So the sector we're looking at today is off-highway.
We're in a quarry, mate.
We're in a quarry.
We're in a quarry.
You can't miss it. You can't miss it. So the off-highway sector, of course, is a massive sector in terms of the types of equipment we can be looking at.
So this would be sort of construction industry,
Construction,
off-highway,
kind of landscaping, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I think this particular episode is about engine oils.
Yeah.
Okay? So we'll be looking at engine oils. So engine oil technology, okay, has to range from everything from these little bobcat type, skid steers, which could be 25, 30 horsepower, all the way up to 4,500 horsepower, depending on what type of equipment we're looking at. But interestingly, the actual engine oil technology is pretty much the same between that 30 horsepower engine and the 4,500 horsepower engine.
Okay.
Very similar. So we're studying in front of a Volvo hauler today. Okay.
Yeah,
so we've
big
got
old thing, isn't it?
big old thing. What, 16 litres of Volvo power in there.
Yeah. Big old lump in that. Yeah.
So this sector particularly is where you need the grunt. Okay, there's a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of heavy carry, and so you need a lot of low rev grunt basically. So these engines aren't particularly small in this particular environment. As I say, you can have small ones if you're landscaping your garden.
Yeah.
This is a different one. This is obviously on a Volvo hauler. So there's particular requirements that engine oil has got to be able to cope with. And one of the biggest problems in this sector actually is soot. Soot is a big contaminant for engine oils in this sector, because they don't do road speeds like even a tractor would these days. 55k boxes on a tractor.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
You're never going to get this going down the motorway with 45 tons of aggregate on the back of it.
No,
you're never going to see that.
Yeah.
Ever.
The 5 or what
you would turn a few heads if that happened.
Yeah.
But because of that kind of workload, and because you don't get sort of the same kind of heat soak on the engines, you get sort of incomplete combustion, which creates a lot of soot. And soot loading in these types of engines is a massive issue that the lubricant has got to cope with.
That because these are sat at just constant revs all the time. I thought it would be kinder on.
Yeah, it's kinder on the engine components, but it's not kinder on the combustion process. Right. It makes it incomplete.
It feels more subtle.
Yeah, and
so you get more soot in the oil.
You get more soot in the oil. So
how do you deal with that?
So the oil has got to have. There's several things. Soot is pretty bad because it'll thicken the oil up prematurely. Yeah. And the oil has got to be at a certain viscosity or thickness so it flows around and keeps things nice and cool. So it'll thicken it up. The other problem with it is soot is quite abrasive as well. It's quite an abrasive material, so you've got all that going around. So the oil has got to have something called good dispersancy. So dispersant chemistry.
Made that up?
No, I haven't.
Dispersancy.
Dispersancy is a good one. Remember that. Throw it into your general conversation if you can.
That's beyond me. Go on.
So dispersancy. So these are molecules which basically attracted to the soot soot particles, and they keep them from sticking together. So they disperse them in the body of the lubricant. So by dispersing them, it means that the oil continues to flow correctly.
Right.
Okay? So dispersancy is very important, and also wear protection. Because if you've got an abrasive material floating around, you've got to protect all the components from wear as well. So there are certain engine oil specifications which lend themselves to this particular market, are very good at dispersancy control and wear protection as well. So that's got to be a big tick for any lubricant. Otherwise, it'll wear. Basically, you'll either wear it out prematurely. Cams particularly tend to go quite quickly with too much soot in there. But if you thicken the oil up prematurely, you could block oilways, oil feeds, oil galleries, then you've got an oil starvation problem.
Yeah, them big problems.
If that's going to a mains,
big problems.
Boom, that's gone.
So go on, what sort of service intervals are we looking at with something like this?
Well, again, like any of these markets, the manufacturer will give you an assigned service.
What was it, 500 hours?
500 hours typically.
Is that right? Typically?
Yeah, because you can extend beyond that with oil monitoring. You can do that, but 500 hours because it's because of the contamination from things like soot is the big problem. That's what kills the lubricant. This kind of workload is tough. I mean, maybe
but it's tough. But you still have the same sort of intervals. You think it'd be still the same sort of?
Oh, so yeah. Again, every
but this is a specific
different.
oil though. This is a specific oil for this compared to a tractor.
Yeah. Well, this will be a Volvo specification that goes into this particular one because it's a Volvo.
Yeah.
And part of that specification will be things like dispersancy for soot control.
Yeah.
So it is kind of tuned into this requirement. But of course, Additional to all that, I mean, you have got to look after all the engine components as well, keep them all clean and all the rest of it. But you've also got after-treatment devices on. We've spoken about after-treatment devices before, so to be
AdBlue, DPF,
absolutely diesel oxidation catalyst. Yeah, so if this was the latest one, this would be a Tier 4 Stage 5 compliant engine. Okay. So you will have diesel oxidation catalyst, diesel particulate filter, AdBlue catalyst, all bolted on there. And they only perform correctly if you've got the correct chemistry in the engine oil, because you always burn a little bit of lubricant in the combustion chamber, because you're lubricating, obviously, top compression ring, valve guides, valve stems. You're always going to incinerate a little bit of lubricant. That's always going to happen. But the chemistry, those compounds, when you incinerate them at those high temperatures, you break them up into their component parts. They get blown out of the combustion chamber with the exhaust gases, down with the exhaust gas stream into the after-treatment devices.
Block it up.
This is what can happen. So certain chemistries, for example, sulfur and phosphorus, will poison the AdBlue catalyst, so that'll stop working. It'll poison the diesel oxidation catalyst as well, so that'll stop working. And of course, the engine management systems will alert you to that. So as soon as it sees everything's out of kilter, okay, the exhaust gases coming out the exhaust pipe aren't where they should be, flashing lights may have limpo mode, half power mode, to get that rectified. And then some of the ash which is created from burning that lubricant can actually then block the diesel particulate filter prematurely as well. So when it tries to regenerate, burns the carbon off the soot, but that metallic ash stays behind, and gradually it can't get back to the normal working pressure. And then that's it. All the lights flash on.
Limp mode.
Limp mode.
Yeah,
so,
we don't want that. We don't want that. So balancing the chemistry, right? The chemistry's got to be good enough to look after the engine, all the components, keep it clean, disperse all the soot, do all these lovely things. But at the end of the day, it can't reduce the life of the after-treatment devices. Because on these things, they're expensive, because you don't have a space constraint like you would on a little hatchback car. Mm-hmm. You can put so many things underneath there. You don't have space constraints, so you tend to have bigger DPFs, bigger diesel oxidation catalysts, because you've got the room to do it. But of course, the bigger they come, the more expensive they are to replace. Yeah.
So that can be a big issue when you're talking about saving pennies on a lubricant, where you have thousands of pounds worth of damage to after-treatment.
The old saying, boy, penny wise, pound foolish.
Absolutely.
Hey?
I'm getting those T-shirts printed as we speak. So the other interesting part of this market is the use of biofuel. So although we've got biofuels at the pumps, okay?
And bio in what sense?
So it might contain plant matter. I mean, fuel has improved dramatically, as you know. But the problem with biofuel, and there'll be more biofuel used as we go ahead, because obviously that's part of reducing our fossil fuel uptake, if you like.
Yeah.
Is that biofuels, they do the job, but they can have a side effect in terms of contamination of the engine lubricant. So unburnt biofuel, if it gets down into the sump of the engine, okay, in with the oil basically, you can start to get varnishes and lacquers formed from it. So varnishes and lacquers are kind of high temperature deposits. And if you've got high temperature deposits forming in the engine, then those components, the actual tolerances will be changed. Okay, so you don't get the same efficiency and operational efficiency.
Never.
Yeah, so it'll build up this hard,
know that.
almost like a shellac.
I know biofuels are giving you an issue with blocking fuel filters up and causing seaweed in the tank.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I didn't know it would cause a problem with the lubricant.
Well, yeah, I mean, storage is a big problem, of course, as well, as you say, for stirring growth. Absolutely. Yeah. But also, it can dilute the lubricant as well. That's the other harmful side effect to it. So if you're relying on a certain viscosity grade of lubricant to look after your mains, your big end bearings, all the critical parts, and it's getting thinner and thinner because you're getting dilution from biofuel, of course that will impact, and that will have a problem. That'll generate wear issues and various other things, and reduce the life of the lubricant as well. So if you're trying for your 500 hours, you might not quite make it there if you're dumping loads of biofuel into the sump. So
go on, how are you accounting for that? Or how's Morris accounting for that?
Okay, so when we're looking at formulating these lubricants, one of the things we have to make sure is that the specifications that we're formulating to and we're providing our customers with are capable of combating some of these side effects. So a lot of the new specification developments coming through are to try and handle the ingress of biofuels. So we don't get the varnishes and the lacquers. We don't get issues with wear from fuel dilution. Mm-hmm. So it's a big step change, but we can only see more and more biofuels being used going forward. There won't be less, obviously. So this can be a problem if it goes unchecked. And it's the right thing to do, of course, be using a certain percentage of biofuel. But it can have a harmful side effect if the lubricant you're using isn't fine-tuned to combat some of those problems and issues.
Interesting.
So one of the other kind of challenges and it depends on the environment. At the moment, we're quite okay. We're in the middle of a quarry, so everything's quite good here, okay? But if you're a couple of miles underground, of course, okay, if you're in a mining environment where off-highway equipment is used, or if you're in a different part of the world where you've got lots of high humidity, for example, water is something water vapour is something we have to be mindful of. So any equipment which is shut down for a period of time, which breathes and brings in water vapour, so that could be humidity, depending on whereabouts you are on the globe, basically. Or if you're underground, that can be quite humid underground. So one of the things that a lubricant and an engine lubricant in this particular case has to deal with is any rusting and corrosion issues.
Yeah.
Particularly in the air spaces of the crankcase, etc. So you need good rusting and corrosion control as well from a well-formulated engine oil to cope with that. To be able to plate out certain active chemistries which will form a barrier between the atmosphere where the water vapour is and the actual metal itself, or the alloys, whichever construction materials are being used in that particular engine. So rusting and corrosion is something that has to be dealt with as well. So correctly formulated engine oil has to tick that box, because this equipment can be used in 1,000 different kind of climates and environments and working applications.
Condensation. Right.
Condensation.
No, I would never have thought. I would never have thought.
So that's another box we have to tick. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I would have always have thought that if these are hot enough for long enough, it would evaporate the condensation off.
It is. I mean, generally it does.
And for short use, you would get condensation.
If you've got specialist equipment, of course, where it's only brought out when it needs to be brought out, that's when, of course, you can have the problems.
Okay. Right.
But for things which are working almost, some of these could be working 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
They change the operator. They don't the driver. They don't change.
So you wouldn't get a condensation issue then.
You wouldn't, because everything's nice.
It's just the stuff that's used for short.
It's the layup issues that you've got to cope. As long as you've got oil splashing around in there, you're laughing. But as soon as everything stops and it cools down,
and the condensation,
that's when you can.
Cold. Interesting.
That cycle is not the best.
Sound.
So basically, it's like any of these applications. First of all, always consult what the manufacturer's requirements are in terms of lubricant specification for the engine.
Yep.
Okay, so whatever that is, follow that guideline. Then look at the service interval. Again, as we talked about, 500 hours, could be more, could be less, depending on what that manufacturer specifies. That needs to be in there as well. So get the right oil quality for the service interval program as specified by the OEM, and you got to maximise the life out of these kind of beasts, basically. Because again, like any sector we've spoken about previously, this is a workhorse. This is somebody's business we're talking about. This is not a hobby.
It's got to be out working every day. It's got to be reliable.
It's got to be, absolutely. So as soon as it ends up in a workshop,
it's not earning the brass, is it?
It's not earning the brass.
Yeah.
It's the downtime. It's the expense. So a correctly qualified lubricant will help keep that out the workshop. So you're maximising your returns on this. And these aren't cheap to buy either. Yeah, these units can be a lot of money.
Yeah. A lot of money.
So you want them out in, obviously in a quarry in this particular example, earning their crust. But it's all about, as I say, just being very pedantic about the type of quality of lubricants you're going to choose, and then following the OEM's guidelines on service intervals. And then you've got something which will last a long time for you.
Got it, Morris all the way.
Yeah,
hey?
Very
okay,
cool.
You're right.
Absolutely.
Sound job.
Yeah. So as I say, critical part of how that engine works is the lubricant, and as I say, with especially emissions are continuing to be pushed all the time now. So particulate number now is something we have to think about, is the size of the particles coming out. So the finer all these filters become, the more fine-tuned the actual chemistry has to be in the lubricants as well. So that's evolving all the time as all these after-treatment devices and demands put on these engines evolve as well. So if you want to see any more content like this or videos with Guy, then visit the Morris Lubricants website or our YouTube channel.